Welcome, Wax and Gold. Please come in. Welcome to our home. I'm Joy Ford Austin, and I'm delighted that you're here. My name is Joy Ford Austin, and currently I work for former Mayor Sharon Pratt with the Institute for Policy, Politics, and History at UDC.
My name is Bobby Austin. I am a sociologist by training. I have worked as a vice president of university, president of a foundation. I was an editor of a major journal. I had my own foundation, and I write. I'm now the executive director of an organization called Neighborhood Associates Corporation here in Washington, D.C.
One of the joys of the last 25 years has been coming and taking care of this magnificent house.
When I saw the living room, or the great room, I actually said, I have to have this house. This is my house. This is where I want to be. And so that's basically how we bought it. I think it was that when you walk in, basically the designer was very smart, because when you come into our house, into this house, it's a very narrow, almost like a middle passage thing. It's very narrow, it's very low, and you feel like, wow, this is not a big house. And then you get to the center of this archway, and it's like, boom, it just opens up straight to the ceiling. I mean, you have this cathedral ceiling in this seemingly very narrow entry, and it's amazing.
Well, the house was built in 1932. We have enjoyed it so much. Our children have lived here, our grandchildren spend summers here. It's been a wonderful experience. This neighborhood is called North Portillo Estates.
This tends to be a very middle-class Black neighborhood.
It's a quiet neighborhood.
It has many names. Some people say Gold Coast, some people say Platinum Coast, some people just say those people. But it's a wonderful, safe, good neighborhood for families. It really is.
I wanted to start at the very beginning. My husband's great-grandmother and her son is his grandfather. This portrait is of his wife and her sister. We believe all four portraits were done at the same time, probably around 1899 to 1900, within that, the turn of the century. I wanted to point out one of our favorite pieces, which is a bowl from Zimbabwe, which is made of telephone wires. It's always been a prized possession, but it is even more so now. We came here because my husband took a job at Georgetown University. It was his first job out of his PhD program in Canada, where we met.
I came here to teach at Georgetown, which I did, but I didn't have enough sense to stay because I wanted to do something else. I then went to work at the Urban League for Vernon Jordan and Ron Brown. There they gave me the opportunity to create a journal. It's called the Urban League Review. It was the first public policy journal developed and run by African Americans. And I think it lasted about 10 or 12 years. And I went from there to consulting. I went to work at the National Endowment for the Humanities. I was Joe Duffy's special consultant on American culture. And it really changed my life, because that's how I became not only involved in the culture of African Americans, but in American culture and how they intersperse. They're not separate. They are integrated. They have always been integrated. They have always fed off of each other. So there is a common culture that we share. That's why people who come from other places in the world, from the West Indies, like my wife or other places, they can come and merge their cultures, because it is that kind of a society. It is not a staid, let's say, English thing where it's set, it's not going to move. America it moves. It's almost like an amoeba. It changes and it shapes. American democracy and American life and culture is an experiment. It's an experiment in freedom. It's an experiment in cultural understanding. It's an experiment in identity. People, kids, young people, old people even, me for instance, you're looking at your life, and therefore you can create or curate how you want your life to be. That is so important, and I hope our young generations will see that as being an important part of the American experiment, and that they are at the center of that experiment. They're not on the outside.
My first job here was as executive director of the African American Museums Association. At that time, there were like 17 museums and maybe about 52 members. And now the African American Museum community has grown to over 300 institutions. With that work, I was also able to do the survey for Congress that led to the development of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, because back in 2003, it was very important for these institutions to say, yes, we are ready for a national African American museum. And so I was able to participate in a small way, in the development of the museum. And then for the last 20 years, I've been the executive director of the Humanities Council of Washington, D.C. I came to work there at the time when the rumbling of gentrification was just beginning in the city. And people across the neighborhoods were concerned because they had built all of these lives and communities around individual neighborhoods across the city, and they wanted to make sure that their stories were told. And I have to say that both the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Commission on the Arts and Humanities recognized that during that time, the Humanities Council did the work of helping people mitigate loss. And whether that was small grants to do films, or oral histories, or exhibits, or archives, Humanities Council was there. And I'm very proud of that contribution that I, again, was able to make. Now we're going to go into the living room. And this is by far the room that we love the best because of the window, the ability to see the trees and the sky. And I wanted to point this out. It was a piece that we saw on Rhode Island Avenue in an old cinema. The interesting thing about that is that in those days, when people bought old furniture or antiques or collectibles or whatever you want to call it, they very often only put a markup of maybe 10, 15% on the furniture. So it wasn't the value of the furniture, but the markup. And so it was affordable for a young couple to purchase a beautiful sofa like that. And we've held on to it all these years. These are newer pieces, and they are Chinese style furniture. Another find, the two very large screens found being sold by a hotel. I wanted to point out something that I love very much. I want to bring this out and show it to you because in many ways this represents a little bit of who I am. This brass tray would have come from India with one of my grandparents or great-grandparents. I am not sure exactly, and I'm still trying to find out, but it represents my Indian background for me. And also the tendency to love brass things. My husband did a lot of traveling when he was a Kellogg Fellow. Here are some Egyptian and Ghanaian objects that he enjoyed bringing for us. The photographs of flowers were given to us by Bobby's mother, who loved to collect antiques. Another thing that we love about this house and this room is this balcony. It's been a lovely opportunity to look down, see people enjoying themselves, but always an enjoyable part of this large room. This painting was done by my father's mother, my grandmother, in Georgetown, Guyana. And the birds, that are called gallings, and the water lilies are very much a part of what makes Guyana in terms of birds and flowers. This painting was discovered in the home of a friend, and I have it, and I hope to take care and hand it on to other generations. So it's one of my favorite pieces. One of the things that we love to do here are tablescapes. So bunching like things or things that look similar together. And so one of the things that I wanted to point out are the crosses. These three are Ethiopian crosses. This is simply a Christmas decoration that I love. And this is a Coptic cross. And behind the crosses is the very first painting. Bobby was still a PhD student, but we were already friends, and we found this painting in Canada. Sometimes people say, oh, velvet paintings. You think of Elvis Presley and the horrid looking paintings, but this we think is particularly beautiful, and we loved her from then. And then over here, I point out the Van de Zee photograph. It's not an original, but it's something that we love. There's Marcus Garvey, the Jamaican leader who did so much for helping us to think about ideas around independence. These are some of the Haitian pieces that Bobby brought back. That is a gift that I gave him. It's a watercolor of a bridge in Guyana, and I gave him as a wedding present the first year that he went to Guyana. My husband and I, who have been married for 50 years this year, had a lot of values in common and a lot of things that we were interested in common. And one of those things was that, hospitality mattered. Having friends in and having people come and stay and enjoy food and wine, long afternoons of sitting and talking, solving the problems of the world, whether it was theology, whether it was culture, whether it was history, whether it was the arts. Always these wonderful conversations with people that are thinkers and doers and who cared about what happened in the city, what happened in the country, what happened in the world.
I'm not a bad Southern cook. I use a lot of butter, I use a lot of lard, I use all those things that you're not supposed to use. People like coming to my house, they used to, because here they would eat all the things that they loved, even though when they went home, they would go right back to eating lettuce and, tomatoes. I like that kind of entertaining.
So Maya Angelou came to visit us unexpectedly one Sunday. Bobby had just finished cooking. Right away, we offered her something to eat. And she said, yes, I would love to have some of your greens and cornbread and fried chicken that only the Kentuckians can fry. And so we brought it out, and she sat at the dining table. And then she said, would you get us some pepper sauce? And I'm Guyanese, I'm West Indian. The one thing I'm supposed to have in my household is pepper sauce. Well, there was not any pepper sauce to be seen in this house. So I came out, so Miss Angelou, I apologize. We always have pepper sauce, but today I don't. And she said, oh, don't you worry. It's okay, I'll manage. She brought the pepper sauce out of her purse and sprinkled it on the Bobby's greens. And I have never been without pepper sauce since. Lesson learned. Every year, my sister and I hosted Christmas. She did a nice West Indian jump up at her house, and then I did more traditional Christmas dinner because I wanted people to be together. And then we'd come in here and we'd open gifts. That is what I will miss the most when I leave, the richness of the Christmases. My very favorite way to entertain is to bring a group of my friends together for tea. And often I will use my mother-in-law's tea set. I'm grateful to her for leaving that to Bobby and I. I want to talk about this because it is a 92-year-old artifact. during a Christmas party, one of our guests closed the door and we did not have a key. And so the locksmith had to come to open the door, destroyed this 92-year-old lock, and we now have a new lock. But the point I wanted to make, though, is that we have tried our very best to keep all of the elements of this house that were transferred to us, so that this floor, we have tried to take care of it as much as we can. The arches, the wooden doors, the bones of the house, we have tried to keep. And so we will leave this just so new tenants, new people coming in, people who buy it, will see the old lock, but will also, I hope, acknowledge that we did restore and retain the very best elements of the house. This is a refractory table. I actually bought it at a law firm in Georgetown, another very early purchase of ours. And it has these two huge sides that can be put in. And at that point, 12 people can easily fit here. And in fact, more than 12 have often sat here. This is where the conversations took place. One of those conversations was with Arun Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful conversation about resolving conflict, about people of all religions learning to live with each other. And I just, listening to him and listening to his wife Sunanda in those days, I was just so struck that if the Mahatma was as poignant and passionate about loving people, I could see how he was able to persuade millions of Indians to give up the yoke of British tyranny and become independent.
What are the most memorable events that you posted?
Well, I couldn't tell you on camera, so I don't know, because I'd have to call their names. I'm not going to do that. We had one dinner party, and it just became a shouting, screaming match. These are highly educated, both doctors are just going at it, a man and a woman. But the next day, one of my friends called because her sister was involved and said, "Oh, guess what? So-and-so sent one of the people 24 red roses to, to apologize for their bad behavior." So that's the kind of little parties we used to have sometimes.
And just want to point out to you the Ethiopian painting, the traditional painting of the story of Solomon and Sheba, which is the start of the royal history of Ethiopia, a 3,000-year-old history. So I wanted to point out David Driscoll's bird. It's a limited edition print. And of course, as you know, David was a preeminent African-American artist and curator and scholar of African-American art. So we're very, very proud to have that. So when we came to the house, there was a 1930s stove in this enclave here. And it was a 1930s gas stove. We've updated it a little bit many years ago, and we've loved it. I want to point out the Guyanese sketches. And so the koker was a Dutch method of keeping the water from getting into the land. Market ladies in Guyana. The oldest wooden cathedral, which is very famous, the largest wooden cathedral in the world. And then the beautiful Kaieteur Falls. And so to be in the kitchen and to be thinking of home makes everything right. We'll go upstairs. So I was going to show you one change that we did make in the house when we bought it. This was a porch. So we enclosed it and we turned it into a bedroom. And that was one very big change. And this became a dressing room for my husband and I. This, when we bought it, was very much an attic. This we turned into rooms for our kids, small living room, and a skylight. I have 4 children. I have 3 girls and 1 boy. And for grandchildren, it's exactly the opposite. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. One of my grandsons was baptized here. The grandchildren love being here. This is a kind of house with lots of nooks and crannies, so it's easy to have treasure hunts and scavenger hunts, and it's easy to do hide and seek. It's a house that lends itself to parties. We've loved entertaining over the years. We have friends who write, and so we've had book signings here. Great, great times. Well, I'm just going to show you my grandchildren, and it's Blake, Sasha, Rowan, and Leek. Those are my hearts. These are prints by an artist, a Guyanese artist that I recently discovered, Errol Brewster. It's 200 years since the Berbice slave revolt in Guyana. And this man is Jack Gladstone. Gladstone was a Prime Minister of England, and his father was an absentee slave owner and sugar plantation owner. This guy led a very peaceful rebellion that was met with a great deal of violence. Just this week in August, the Gladstone descendants have gone to Guyana to apologize, and she was very much a supporter and a planner in the slave revolt. Thinking about the home tour and the opportunity that we had today to show you some of the things that we love here, I would say one thing as I look back is collect what your eye is attracted to, collect what you love, and don't worry so much about whether it will grow in value or not. We have things here that we have paid very little for that have grown in value. We've also spent a little money on the things that we absolutely had to have because we loved it. But with both kinds of things, it was always what called your eye, what attracted you.
This has been good for us simply because it memorializes something that won't come back again.
Thank you, Wax and Gold, for giving me the opportunity to share my home with you. I've enjoyed it, my husband has enjoyed it, and it has been for us a joy because we have loved this home so much over many, many years. Thank you.